Scott County, providing safe, healthy, and livable communities.
On to item number 5, where we're going to receive information on the Scott County Delivers topic, Live, Learn, and Earn. And here we go. We've got a panel, socially distanced. There's very few people in the room. We've got masks coming in and out. Life is good. Life is good. Sometimes it's a choice, but life is good.
Life is good.
All right. Chris, you're going to kick us off.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We are here today to talk about Live, Learn, Earn as part of the Scott County Delivers series. We are very privileged today, I think, to have a nice collection of folks from the county and also from our community partners, and we're going to do some introductions around that in just a minute. This is the first time that Live, Learn, and Earn has presented at Scott County Delivers, so it'll be a nice chance to ask questions of this group. I think kind of one of the introductory points I would just like to make is as we talk about this morning, Live, Learn, Earn is not a program and it's not an initiative. It's really a way that we hope to do business, and I think you're going to hear that over and over this morning, that it's really about how we do business with each other to accomplish the things that we see as common goals. You're also going to hear a little bit about us being at kind of a new point in a developmental cycle with LLE. And I think that Jay Grusing, who is one of our remote presenters today, is going to start with that. One just logistical note, Darren Kermis is a remote presenter and he is only available until 9:30 this morning, so we're going to accommodate his schedule in that way. So with that, could I ask the folks in the room to do just a brief introduction of who you are and who you work with, and then we'll ask for the remote presenters to do the same.
Sure. Barb Dahl, Social Services Director with Scott County, and have been, I guess, mostly involved with our workforce readiness group within Live, Learn, Earn.
Julie Sigert with the Scott County CDA, and have been involved in the housing work group.
Kurt Briggs, Mayor of Prayer Lake. I've been involved on the steering committee of Live, Learn, Earn, also on the education group, and most recently on housing.
Thank you. Jake.
Good morning. Jake Grusing, Scott County Library Director and Project Coordinator for Live, Learn, Earn.
Jody Brennan. Are you with us?
Thank you. I'm Brennan from the Shakopee City Council. I'm a member of Live, Learn, and Earn, and I'm on the Housing Committee, the Transit Committee, and then I'm also involved in the Innovation Center.
Wonderful. Thank you for being with us today. Darren?
Good morning. Darren Termes, Superintendent of Southwest Metro Intermediate School District.
Thank you. It sounds like you have a busy schedule this morning, so we appreciate you working us in and making the most of your time. Danny Lenz is going to join me at the podium kind of off and on this morning. Did you want to start, or would you like me to start? All right. Jake, you were going to make some introductory comments, so I'd like to take that back to you for just a minute.
Sure. Thank you, Chris, for that introduction. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. And a special thanks to Councilmember Brennan, Mayor Briggs, Superintendent Kermes, and Julie Siegert for being in the room today participating. Because Live, Learn, Earn, as Chris said, is more a way of doing business than it is a program, the success of Live, Learn, Earn depends entirely on the partners it comprises, even in conversations like this. Live, Learn, Earn is a collective impact initiative with a mission of ensuring the sustained economic vitality for all Scott County residents. Another way of saying that, I think, is that Live, Learn, Earn brings people together to worry less about their own turf and their own silos and more about how we can serve our taxpayers effectively and efficiently. To a large degree, that's why we're here in a county board setting talking about this. The county is one among many partners in Live, Learn, Earn, and we provide a variety of services as a county connected to Live, Learn, Earn's focus areas of housing, transportation, education, and workforce development. So today we're going to talk about those 4 topics, where we've been, where we think we're going. We've got 4 minutes before Superintendent Kermes has to leave. I hope we can turn it over to him for a couple questions and hear his perspective.
Thank you, Jake. Yes, Darren, can we start with just a couple questions for you? I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about, from your perspective, about the partnership element of, I'm not sure where I'm looking here, about the partnership element of Live, Learn, Earn, and also what you see as some of the financial or the fiscal implications for LLE.
Well, thank you. And again, I apologize that I need to be running this morning. I have a meeting with the Department of Education coming up related to COVID, and just got off the National Weather Service call on whether we're going to need to release school early today. So with that,
Can you cut him off?
Fun day in the
Way to
neighborhood.
cut him off. Can't be talking like that.
The beauty of Live, Learn, Earn and what I'm seeing from an educational perspective is, if maybe I can use the example of our post-secondary group. You know, how many years have Southwest Metro serves both Scott and Carver counties primarily, and how many years have both of these counties been talking about the need for post-secondary opportunities? We don't have a college, a university, a community college, a tech college in our areas. And I am, for the first time in literally a decade, excited about the prospect that we're going to be able to, through the conversation started through Live, Learn, Earn, bring in some opportunities. We're hoping to be a part of that. We're hoping to close on the purchase of a Dean Lakes facility and working to make that be part of the solution. The city of Shakopee has a wonderful initiative, and I know they are waiting to hear whether that's going to be funded. Another thing that came through Live, Learn, Earn and just the collaboration and the connections. And with all due respect to our friends and colleagues in Carver County, I will tell you that serving both counties, there is no comparison in terms of the relationship that exists between these two counties separated by a river. It is, from the education side, it is wonderful to feel that there's actual partnership with cities, with county government, and with others, as opposed to being in silos and pods. So I'm not certain if I answered all of your questions, but I see that as the biggest benefit to us in education through scale and Live, Learn, Earn and other opportunities to collaborate and connect and hopefully bring in some more post-secondary opportunities here over the next year or two.
Darren, this is Barb. I think one of the things that is so unique about your opportunity with the Dean Lakes, and maybe this is what Chris was getting to from the fiscal perspective, is just how you've been able to work with the school districts and how you've been able to, I guess, look at a model that really doesn't have an impact to their budgets or to your budgets. And I don't know if you would want to explain that a little bit.
Sure. We are a joint powers entity. We are formed, the legislature authorized the creation of Southwest Metro. In technical terms, it's a joint powers entity with 11 of the member school districts, 5 from Scott County, 4 from Carver, and then Buffalo, Hanover, Montrose, and Tri-City United are our formal voting members. And what we did in the purchase of the Dean Lakes building, or what we are hoping to close on here in mid-December, is all of our boards had unanimously voted to approve the purchase. Was just on a call with Moody's yesterday, getting our bond rating. We anticipate getting that out and moving forward very quickly. What we're going to do with this is we have a couple of other satellite sites in Shakopee. We're going to move all of our programs. These will be our adult basic education programs, special education transition, some of our career and technical education programs, and one of my favorite programs, and I'm glad Barb brought this up, but we have a partnership with Scott County to provide the Reflections Day Treatment Program. The county provides the therapists, and we provide the educational staff. It's a wonderful partnership that serves a lot of young people across not only Scott County, but also from the surrounding areas. That will also be moving into that building by getting out of our other leases and then eventually selling our interest in the Valley Green building, we are going to be able to do this, to purchase a 100,000 square foot building, do the necessary renovations, which are modest at best, given that this building was already set up for training and education. We will be doing this at a zero cost impact to local taxpayers. Say that again, zero change. We were able to do this, our lease levy will go up slightly, but our long-term facilities maintenance will go down dollar for dollar by a corresponding amount, because we are getting out of older buildings and moving into a much newer, nicer facility. And that's before we even talk about the savings to the local school districts of only having to send buses to one location instead of multiple sites, and our ability to work and partner with the programs within that building. So again, it's from a fiscally responsible point of view. I will welcome all of you to come visit that building, hopefully after the first of the year when we finish this. But to be able to upgrade our facilities at zero tax impact, I think is just a wonderful opportunity for students, learners of all ages across this county.
That's really very impressive. Thank you for sharing that. That's really fine work. Before you go, Darren, we did include in our data packet a couple of slides regarding educational outcomes for students in Scott County. On page 26, there's the percent of third grade readers. And page 20, oops. Thank you. There we go. There's on page 27, there are high school graduation rates. And I wonder if somebody on the Live, Learn, Earn team can talk a little bit about your approach to looking at information related to education and how you are using this data to inform your own work. And Darren, I guess I'll give you the first chance because I realize we're out of time, over your timeline.
So your question is, how are we using this data?
Yeah, is your group looking at this kind of data, and are you using it in a way to inform direction or approaches to impacting educational outcomes for students in Scott County?
I can jump in just quickly from the post-secondary piece. The graduation, we did look at a lot of data. One of the items that we did look at was graduation rates. One of the areas that we think could even increase those rates beyond the high levels that they're already at is more opportunities for high school seniors. You have the students who are seniors that are going to graduate no matter what we do. I mean, they're wonderful kids from great families who are intelligent and learn well. The kids that I worry about are the at-risk kids. It's the kids who struggle in school, who may have some other barriers that present challenges for them. And that's, I think, where we try to come in. And if you notice, our graduation rate is pretty flat. I think trying to provide things to get to that next 10%, to create opportunities, for example, in the areas of career and technical education. Not every student in Scott County is destined for a four-year college, but how about providing some career and technical, some hands-on opportunities for kids? Could that incentivize some students that otherwise may elect to drop out to stay in school, to complete and graduate, and possibly even pursue an AA or other advanced certification in an area that is more of a hands-on versus a more four-year college kind of degree. So yes, in short, we do look at the data. At least I can speak to my interpretation of it from the committee work that I've done. And I think that the committee, through some of its actions, not the least of which is the post-secondary initiative, could have an impact that could bring those high graduation rates even higher.
Great, thank you.
And I do apologize, I need to jump off here, but thank you for the time. I appreciate not only your time today, but all the support that this county gives, especially to education. You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, Darren.
And I'm Danny Lenz, I'm the Deputy County Administrator, and I'm going to walk through a couple of slides related to some of our educational and reading achievements, and get some maybe dialogue on kind of how this trend might flow. So if we go back to, let's see, where's our, the screenings?
Yep.
Screen age 3, okay. So if we look at this, in 2012, we were at 50% countywide in percent of kindergartners screened at age 3. Then we had a decline and then a back, kind of an upward trajectory up back to that 50%. So flat over that time period. But one of the takeaways I had from this was that our intervention came into the middle of a decline in this rate where we started having this screen at 3. As we follow that kind of trend, and the timing of this is a little bit off, obviously, because we started tracking screening at age 3 back there. We've also seen a decline in the percent of third grade students achieving reading standards. But then we're seeing a high school graduation rate. So if we're looking back at measuring the success of our Screen at 3 program and our focus on third grade reading levels, as we've seen that uptick in our screening at 3, should we start seeing a pattern going up in our third grade student achieving reading standards? And then for high school graduation rates, would we expect a decrease there, dip, based on that third grade reading level, and then a trajectory up over the course of time as these students age through the system? That was a lot.
I'll go ahead and jump in quickly. If you would go to the screening, the age 3 screening. So one of the key initiatives, and I call the commissioners to look at the variation between the cities. One of the things that the education task force looked at was this screening at age 3. The importance of a referral before a student arrives at kindergarten. I don't recall what the quote-unquote kindergarten surprise number was, but it's on the order of 10 to 15%. What's a kindergarten surprise? That's a child that shows up on the first day of kindergarten in September and was unknown to the principal that student was in his or her catchment area. Well, that means by definition that kindergartners showing up there absent a screening, because it's screening, not only can we identify a social, a visual, a listening challenge, get resources prior to that child arriving in school so that they're prepared academically. And when you looked at the differences, one of the things we also looked at was the concept of a positive deviancy. Positive deviancy are cities or counties or situations where they're performing far beyond the norm. And there you see Belle Plaine. It's doing a great job at ensuring that those students in their area, so what is it that lends them to success, or what are the challenges in other cities? And again, as you look at, say, Shakopee, what are the challenges? Many of those items are cultural language and how do we reach? And that became really the impetus behind a tool that the Live, Learn, Earn pre-K or education team looked at. What can we do to drive up the age 3 screening prior to age 5, enhance academic preparedness, such that they can indeed perform with their fellow students. Because one thing we do know, back to your question on graduation rates, if they are not reading at grade 3 at level, we know that the odds of them academically going on to success, the headwinds are just far too strong. And for a host of reasons, it actually can tail off. So this is something that is very concerning to us. We believe that we can get at that number with our screening before age 5.
Yeah, I think one of the things I was trying to pull out there is that some of this data trails as well, where this one may look like a negative one, but these students are actually being evaluated and they didn't have that intervention we had. Those are the ones that were in that declining period more likely.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, the last board meeting, there was a gift of this Kindle program, and I just wanted to give a chance for people to talk about how that fits into the Live, Learn, Earn work, and Jake, I can't remember how much of a chance you had to speak at that meeting, but I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about the vision of that Kindle project.
Yeah, mercifully for everybody there, I didn't get a chance to speak at all. So I'll take the opportunity now. A generous gift from 2 of our county residents to purchase these Amazon Kids Kindle devices. And they are really intended to be used as an incentive with some of our school district partners to get families to bring their children in for their early childhood screening at age 3. Not at 4, not at 5. If you bring your child in at age 3 for that screening, you can walk away with a free device and a year's worth of educational content already paid for. And the success of that is just getting people in the door to do that. We might be able to track with some help from Amazon how many books those kids are reading, what their activities are, how much time they're spending using some of that educational content. But the real point here is to get those kids in as early as possible for that early childhood screening so they can get connected with other resources if they need them. If there are some developmental issues, getting people on track as early as possible. It's just one more piece in that effort. Be hard to track it back, similar to everything else Live, Learn, Earn does. I think it's really hard to trace back with the percent of kindergartners screened at 3 as an example. Live, Learn, Earn put flyers out there promoting early childhood screening. They launched a texting program promoting early childhood screening. Since those things have happened, the rates have increased. I would not be the first person to say, pat Live, Learn, Earn on the back. We're the ones responsible for that and we deserve the credit. But we're trying to do things to help move those in the right direction, and the school districts and those families are the ones who deserve the credit.
So I'm going to adjust a little bit, although it still kind of relates to this topic. But in the write-up on page 7, let me go back there. One of the things that's talked about is that the nature of this type of work is cyclical. And as Chris alluded to, and Jake, you talked about that Live, Learn, Earn is really a way of doing business. So we obviously are talking through a lot of data and looking at some trends. But as we talk about maybe being in a change cycle here, how do you see that change kind of changing the way we look at this data, we approach this work, and what does that reevaluation look like?
Yeah, I think that it's really loud.
You're fine.
I do think that we're at a point where we're going to need to look at some of the data. If you look at the figure 8 here, I think we have seen this in various models. I think Gary Shelton used to talk about this with scale as well, right? Like you've got a time where you need to try to pull the data that you've been looking at together to determine where's your next step. How do you, as a community, look to evaluate and impact change? I think take the work readiness group, for example, we thought a couple different areas we wanted to lean in on was looking at both the post-secondary and is there a better way to kind of televise the job opportunities that are available. We've been moving forward on both of those avenues, and now we know that our environment as it pertains to work readiness looks really different than it did 6 months ago. I think last time, about a year ago, we were here talking about labor market, and we knew that at that time we had a labor shortage, and now we're seeing higher unemployment rates just due to the situations that have happened this year. So what does that mean for us? I think one of the pieces of this group has always talked about, we don't actually drive the initiatives, but we can help create the conditions that make for things to happen in a positive direction. So I think it's probably we are at one of those moments where we want to take a look at the fresh data that's out there, like we did with Tim O'Neill that came to scale a couple weeks ago. What does that mean for us? Where can we see opportunities? For example, he had talked about many of our manufacturing positions within the county. We have so many people that are 55 years of age or older. Well, is that an opportunity then for our younger group to be trained in those positions to create life-sustaining, livable jobs here within the community? So I think we have opportunities to look at how we connect and reposition ourselves, but every once in a while you just have to go through that cycle of analyzing your data and looking at how you readjust and add new initiatives to what you need to do to achieve better results.
all I'll add from a perspective is, the problems that Live, Learn, Earn takes on are complex, and they've been around for quite some time. What is it? The truism. The problems we face today cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that went into their creation. And what I've been very appreciative of is the importance of having some patience and also continuity to these workflows. Danny alluded to on the grade 3 reading scores the importance of the tactic or the implementation or the attempt to change effect can only be measured 3-4 years in the future. When we're talking a pre-K age 3 screening, and then we're talking graduation rates with an 18-year-old. That's 15 years. And I think the importance of patience, but also continuity to many of these initiatives, continuity of who's on these teams, so the importance of the county plays with staff participation to bring along the many learnings as elected, either fortunately or unfortunately, come and go. That continuity can be lost, as well as having the voice of the citizens here, but these are complex issues that have been around for quite some time, requiring collaboration and then sticking to some of these initiatives to affect long-term change.
I want to just pause and give any of our remote folks a chance to talk about that. We sometimes, because you're not in the room, it's harder to jump in. So I wonder if there's anyone of the remote presenters that wants to speak either to some educational outcomes or to that sort of cyclical nature, sustained leadership that Kurt just spoke about, or Mayor Briggs just spoke about, and just give you, the remote presenters, a chance to speak. Hey, Brad.
Chris, this is Brad.
Hi.
Just a comment on the new site work. I think we're so fortunate that we do have firefighters under our belt, because I can't think of an initiative that's better poised to get us through and think through this economic recovery that we're looking at. When you look at some articles of changing work patterns, commute times are changing, where people are deciding to live is changing. All of this because of kind of the uncertainty that we're in. And you look on page 7, what are the key things that we're looking at? That's housing, transit, how we're going to get people to work, how we're going to get people to our different destinations. I think those are the key issues we're going to need to think through in this recovery period. And I can't think of a better initiative that's poised to look at these issues across 4 pillars. So that's how I kind of think about the new site work, really helping us tackle the big issues in front of us.
Thanks for speaking to that. Can you be on hold just for a second, Jake? Brad, I mean, you lead so many of the planning efforts here at Scott County, and I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you see the work of Live, Learn, Earn interfacing with the Unified Transit Plan, the housing plan. Like, we have a lot of plans. Like, how does this get pulled together in a way that maximizes our impact?
You bet. And we spent a lot of time on this in our technical teams at scale. We've spent a lot of time looking at our comprehensive plans, our housing plans, our transportation plans. And really the beauty of scale is that we spend so much time sharing information, doing the best we can to coordinate those plans. And I think there's a recognition that now we need to do some prioritization out of those plans. All of us have really good ideas in our housing chapters, but until we can really get everyone together and determine what are the key priorities we need to think about across all of our communities, we really kind of struggle. We don't know where do we invest when different opportunities come up. So I think we really are at that stage of we've all done our plans individually. Now it's time to come together and think, what are the key priorities?
Thank you. Go ahead, Jake.
Thank you, Chris. I was, for this cycle of work on page 7, still you see the bolded list at the bottom some of the actions that have come out of the last few years of work. And a few of those are further planning. You know, in the case of the housing blueprint, probably a plan that's a little bit overdue. The Unified Transit Plan is a big update, and you know, the other bullets there are work that is moving forward. I won't say because of Live, Learn, Earn, but with Live, Learn, Earn's support. And a lot of the work in those bullets will continue for months and years down the road. So we'll have to continue to support that and inform that work and maybe shape some of that work. But at the same time, to Barb's point about looking at the latest data, to Mayor Briggs's point about being patient, I think we also then have to look 5-10 years down the road to make sure we're connecting tomorrow's dots as much as we possibly can, so that 3 years from now, we have another set of bullets, just like the ones we have here on page 7 today, keeping that longer term work going and keeping those partnerships and relationships active.
Thank you. Councilwoman Brennan, I just want to give you a chance to speak around the education or the Live, Learn, Earn cycles before we move on, if you wish.
Thank you. The city of Shakopee and the First Stop Shop and the Minnesota State University in Mankato has been working on the Innovation Center that is down in the downtown Shakopee area. And we recognize the need for connecting people to the businesses and learning about what the businesses do, the skills that are needed. Also supporting entrepreneurship in Scott County and in Shakopee and Greater Scott County, and in supporting those efforts to bring in new ideas and new small business opportunities. So it ties into education, and we're going to be hopefully bringing in the younger people in the elementary age through high school, and then beyond in the secondary. I think it's a great opportunity. I really appreciate all the support that has been given from the Live, Learn, and Earn committee and the different cities and organizations behind it.
Thank you.
So if it's okay with the group, I actually have some questions about some of the housing information. So going through, and again, I feel like I'm on a tangent of trying to tell a story through the data because I'm going to jump around from a few slides again, but this is the percent of householders age 75 or over who own or rent their home. And this data has been fairly flat over the time period we have, and I realize the data is a little bit older. But then going back to our existing units, so 5 units for residents age 55 and over, and our wait list. And our existing units is just not much bigger than our actual wait list for this sort of the part of the population. So my question really there is, what is our efforts to expand this availability for people to allow them to live in a place that they are able to own and rent? And how are we leveraging the private sector through incentivizing them in order to help them meet those goals within the county?
Sure. So a couple of things that we've heard about households who are 75 and older. Obviously, our households are living longer and they're living healthily longer. And so they have the ability to stay in their home. They're not always in a position where they're ready to transition yet into a senior living place. They like the independence. They like that things have been paid off. And so they don't have those ongoing expenses. As you can see from the waiting list, there certainly is demand for these type of units. But what we also find is that people are on the list, but maybe they're not quite ready to move yet. Maybe they're not ready to sell their home when their name comes to the top, so they continue to kind of cycle on this list. We certainly, at the CDA, we develop 55 plus units ourselves. The cities, I know, have different incentives that they do to try to bring a variety of housing types in the community. Maybe there's more villas that need to be built or more detached townhomes that would, support not only the apartments that the CDA has, but offer those a variety of housing types in the community.
A couple of other one on a little bit different track, but this slide shows the share of households paying 30% or more of income for housing, and generally speaking, there's been a downward trend, and so kind of positive results there. And then we also have our supply of affordable workforce housing, and this is all driven by our Maxfield housing study of how many we need to build by 2025, and it actually looks like we've made some really substantial good progress on this based on this chart to meet that 2025 goal. What sort of planning is going on in order to keep that trajectory moving forward for that 2025 goal?
So we have had really great success in being able to increase the supply of affordable housing. And I think Live, Learn, Earn has done a really good job of bringing partners together to have conversations to help people understand what does this type of housing really mean? How does it support our workforce? What are the jobs in our community that support the need for more affordable housing? We are constantly having conversations with developers to make sure that those planning for the future units are in place. Talking with the cities about different land parcels that they have in their comprehensive plans that would be good for developments like this. So really having that conversation with the private sector, with the state of Minnesota who provides funding for a variety of these, with the cities to understand where the developments would work well in their community.
Can I just pose a kind of a bigger question really to any of the presenters? And when we worked on the county's strategic plan last year, we had lots of conversation about the county's role in housing and what our responsibility was and what was the best way to address the needs of people in our community in collaboration with our partners. And so I'm just wondering, as you work together in this collaborative work, like how do you approach that? I think in the narrative, which it sounds like Jay Grusing wrote, but it talked about we trip over each other sometimes, we step on each other's toes, but we like come together and sort of figure it out. And I'm wondering, how do you do that? How do you figure out what people's roles are, what their responsibilities are, and how do we do this in a way so that we're most effectively addressing the need?
I think, we did have a lot of those conversations, and the big thing for me that kind of stood out was those relationships, understanding what the different roles are, knowing, like when opportunities come up, who do we need to contact to potentially make this happen in our community? Oftentimes, it's not just one player. And I think one of the advantages of Live, Learn, Earn is we've been able to talk about, from the housing perspective, not just housing in isolation. So if there's opportunities to come up, how do these things impact our vulnerable population? How do these impact our seniors? How does it impact the workforce? And how can we make sure that we're taking advantage of opportunities that come up so that they're in the best interest of our citizens?
Thanks. How about from the city's perspective? I'd be curious about those roles and responsibilities. Pieces are difficult to navigate sometimes.
I think from city perspective, and again, reflecting back, Prior Lake and housing, for example, absent live, learn, earn, absent scale, I think cities can find ourselves in this wonderful echo chamber where we can just continue to do what we've always done. And what is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. You know, as it relates to housing, this is one that looking across the county I think is important. I noticed on slide 14, if I can go to slide 14, was it 14? 14, Prior Lake is missing here. And yet I happen to know, in terms of units age 55 plus, the fastest growing housing type is the villa housing type in Prior Lake. The other thing is we just cut a ribbon on a transitional care this past week, Summers Ridge. This 55 plus housing demand in Prior Lake is exploding right now because families want to bring their parents into close proximity. So Live, Learn, Earn, to me, one of the huge benefits of participating is to see issues from a county perspective, to force you out of your echo chamber, to recognize the differences of your community, but also the similarities of your community. And we're providing the full life cycle housing product type in your housing is also vitally important. It is not one where, you know, on this issue, and this one is very, very challenging. And it's one for me that, you know, my position and my thoughts on housing have evolved dramatically from where I was in, if I may say, 2017 to where I am in 2020.
Thanks, Mayor. All right. Danny, did you have other questions related to housing? All right. Let's talk about, Let's talk about employment. And this is and Barb, I think you started to preview that this is a different time to be talking about the workforce, to be talking about education, or to be talking about unemployment. We had positioned ourselves with a really low unemployment rate at the end of last year. And I'm wondering if you could talk about what is the work that LLE is involved in right now to look at the changing environment. And Darren, I think, talked about, or Brad talked about, this is the perfect group to sort of strategize around that.
Yeah, so as I talked about a little bit ago, you know, what a difference a few months makes, right? In the world of unemployment, we've seen really dramatic changes. We've seen a little bit of a little bit of an improvement over the last couple months. I think Minnesota State unemployment rate that came out last week for the month of September was 6%, so down from I think 9.9 earlier. So that's a sign of improvement, but I think we don't know what's in front of us. And I think that's the part that when you look at the strategies that Live, Learn, Earn wanted to take a look at, one was around post-secondary education. And I think both the city of Shakopee and Darren have made really some fantastic headway on how do we look to try to fill that gap that we don't have that currently within the community. The other piece was we wanted to look at how do you kind of market or televise the jobs that are available. We know that there are employers right now that are still having a hard time finding people. And so how do we help make those connections better between people that aren't working versus those that are? So I think as the board approved last time you all met, is that we'll be moving forward on the website idea that the Live, Learn, Earn group had discussed and talked about. We also wanted to look at what does that look, what do we look like in terms of economic development? Do we have kind of the right position? Are we positioning ourselves to help spur innovation and make sure that we're continuing to grow and encourage employers in our community? And then how do you better link your local youth with local positions? And so I think there's still some work that can be done on those two areas, both and always, right? Like we should always be continuing to spur and support economic development within the community. But I think this just creates a different opportunity, a different lens to look through. Some of those initiatives are the same, but I do think this does give us an opportunity to look at what else could or should we be doing as a community to help support both employment and workforce development. We want both to occur and be successful.
Have you folks had a chance to talk yet about what that might look like as you think about moving through that change diagram that Jake and others talked about?
I think Stacy and I just briefly talked a little bit ago about that. It probably starts with looking at having Tim O'Neill join our group again and looking at data, looking at gaps. What does this tell us? Where can we find and spark innovation? How do we bring other partners to the table? Because as we saw last time, you've got, like with the city of Shakopee and Darren, they were able to move forward on some really great momentum. And so we'd want to see that again as we move forward. So.
Okay, thanks. Other people have comments about LLE as the group as the restart, not restart, that's not, as you move through that developmental cycle and addressing, particularly thinking about the COVID environment that we're in. Are there other plans that you want to speak to?
One thing too, we have our dashboard in here, and our dashboard has really been mirrored after Greater MSP and how they have developed theirs, and they compare theirs and us, our regional market, across to others that are similar to us. So say Seattle, across the country, to see how we compare. This we've kind of used to benchmark against ourselves. How have we been improving kind of over time from a community indicator standpoint? So I don't know if maybe, I know that Greater MSP, and I know Stacy's on the call here, so I don't want to, I think you still are, put you on the spot, but I know that there's even been some talk about looking at their dashboard indicators. Does that need to be a little bit more real time right now in the midst of, so that we kind of keep an eye on this? I think they're looking at even some unique indicators like open table, like how many people are actually making reservations online to see, so that you're looking at more of a predictive indicator versus some of these are really lag indicators, right? Like we are way behind the times when we're grabbing this data a year, 2 years down the road. Is there something that we can grab that's more upfront so that can be a little more predictive so that we can get in front of it? So I throw that out there. And I don't know if Stacy, you actually saw the presentation, if you've got anything to comment on that. Okay. So it might be something that we can look at. Are there some different indicators?
I guess one thing I would caution us and Live, Learn, Earn from doing is we look at the metrics and we look at the dashboards. Not all that measured, can be measured counts, and not all that counts can be measured. I am a fan of fewer metrics than more metrics for a couple of reasons. One is to make clear what it is we're looking to achieve, even though the change may occur over a protracted period of time, back to the patient's argument. So I think looking at the metrics on an annual basis and asking the question, not only which way are the arrows moving, but are they the right metrics? And can we do a better job at distilling, and in so doing, enhance our effectiveness?
Thank you. I'm aware of the time, and so I would like to turn it back over to the chairman and certainly give the commissioners any opportunity to ask questions that they would like. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I just, a quick question. Where's the page that showed, the learning from Belle Plaine School, Jordan, all that stuff?
That was
17 or something?
the screening rate?
Yeah, something, yeah.
Or was it the third grade?
Just where they were reading at third grade level, is that it?
There you go.
Okay.
Oh,
So this is screening.
This is screen. This
For the
is
screen,
third grade.
okay. So last, I see. So last meeting, Gary Shelton gave out, 20, I can't remember, for all those Kindles. Do we believe those things work for kids? And maybe Jake, if he's on, he could maybe answer that.
Jake, are you still on the call?
Yes, I am.
Did you hear the question?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. I think the answer is probably a complicated one.
Okay.
I personally would say I don't think those devices, those tablets, will do any harm.
Okay.
I think if we had a pediatrician in the room, the pediatrician would say that probably isn't the best thing we could do for a 3-year-old, to put another screen, in front of that person or to give them access to another screen. So I do think there are probably a variety of responses to that. Some actually based on research, some based more on gut feeling and opinion. For how we're using them, how we intend to use them, I think they will do a fair amount of good. That we're using them as an incentive to get kids to come in for their early childhood screening at age 3. After that, they will have access to that device that has ebooks on it, it has educational applications on it. I think if they use those responsibly, and that's, asking the parents to do that and trying to support them in doing that, to use the educational apps, to not have kids on, YouTube or social media, but really a narrow focus. I think there's great potential for some good and potentially a lot of good. I don't know that that's a great answer to your question, but it feels true to me.
Yeah, and all I'm getting, kind of what I'm getting at is, I think Shelton said last meeting, it was about 79 or 75 bucks per unit. Does anybody, Mike?
That's right.
What, is that right?
That's right, yes.
So I'm thinking, we spend about 120 or, like $10,000 per pupil per year in this state, right? So if we just put 79 bucks in to get them to learn.
Does that sound like a good investment
I
for
just
you?
think that sounds like a great investment, because I look at building a house, you can't say, oh, let's just throw some sticks, and you got all this. Well, geez, we should have done something more on the basement level to get this thing to, when these kids are younger, that's the base level of their learning, in my opinion. And that's when we should front end. And if it's just 79 bucks to help them to get to that, because I think that's a really big deal. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for speaking to that. That basement building is what we're trying to do, and that we hope will carry through to all these other outcomes that we're looking for. It's a good.
So remind me again, because Jake and I had a little discussion on this prior to the last meeting, but we can't, and I think somebody alluded to it, we can't necessarily get data from those devices because we're giving them, right? I mean, they're not Scott County devices. They're
Gonna chip people.
Right, which I think is sort of important to.
It's important to say, yes.
To say that.
Yes, it is.
That we don't have some sort of back end of that, and it's unfortunate, but it has to be
Yes.
said. They have 1 year subscription. I'm kind of looking at my screen and at Chris.
Yes.
They get 1 year subscription to these educational things. And I forget, and Jake, you probably told me, but are those pre-loaded and pre-set up, like that dashboard? I'll use it since we're just talking about that. But so that's set up, or we give them, paper to teach them, show them how to. I forget if it's already loaded, or do they have to go and unlock that to use it? Because I know it's a Kindle, so it'll access everything that's out there, and we're trying to get this targeted, and this is kind of our first go around at trying this, and want to try new things, which is I agree it's an awesome opportunity, not without a little intrepidation, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. Is it ready to go, or do they need to go to another screen and I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this? I forget. Is it ready to go? I don't know who can answer that.
Jake?
All right, I'm gonna offer another potentially not so great answer.
Are you running for office?
Yeah, sorry. It's both. So they are ready to go. They will get them new in the box. You open it up. If you have an Amazon account, you can enter your credentials, and that's all you have to do. I was able to get it from opening the box to reading ebooks in about 8 minutes. So you can get going right away without having to do anything else. There are additional steps. They don't come sort of locked down. So the support that we'll have to provide, and the school districts, we hope, will also help us provide to the parents, is to go onto that parent dashboard, and then you can set targets, you can limit certain apps, you can completely restrict access to different things. So we'd like the opportunity to try to talk through, or at least give them some information about how to do that and why it would be important to do those things. Because it does come, not entirely wide open, but there's a lot of content on there, and if the parents want to lock it down, there are some additional steps they have to take.
Yeah, so
But
Thank you.
Because we could get, in just a couple of years, we could get a lot of data. Just if we did one school district, let's say Belle Plaine, Jordan, and just every kid in there, we could figure that out pretty quick, couldn't we? How they work. I don't know, maybe it's something bigger.
When they get to third grade.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Part of the work that is happening through, I think through LLE, but also through some of the other groups that are working on the strategic plan, is the ability to look at specific data specific to a child that because of privacy and those kinds of things, the ability to say this child got a Kindle and this is what his reading scores are in third grade. Like there's still a lot of work to do to be able to make that specific data available.
Okay.
We can look at aggregate data, but so it's work in progress.
Okay.
Other questions? Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We might have one down here.
I'm
today.
sorry.
I
That's
got a couple.
Couple, maybe.
But I won't ask them all. Thank you, and thanks to everybody for being here. I think it makes me feel so good when I see the buy-in from so many different people, organizations, departments, even content areas towards our same goal here. I hope that somebody goes back to the tape and writes down Darren's statement starting off. What a testimonial. I haven't always been the best supporter, cheerleader of Live, Learn, Earn, and Jake's probably smirking right now. But that I needed to hear. I needed to hear things like that from people in our community saying, because of this, you know, we're doing so much better. And I needed to be reminded again, because I'm a little slow, this isn't a program, this isn't even an initiative. This is a way of life and a way of working. And what I think has really helped me over especially the last year with Live, Learn, Earn is the continued buy-in of our county staff and staff from other jurisdictions and entities who say, no, we want to continue working in these groups on these projects, you know. I don't think there's any top-down approach to be like, get to work on this. It's really driven by those people. So a little bit of confession there, a little bit of, you know, moving forward. I think that's great. And I think Darren, in 2 sentences, really summed it up. And we need to use that to motivate people like me, to motivate us all, but to help explain what we do and what the results are with Live, Learn, Earn. I just have a quick question for Julie because Mayor Briggs brought it up, but the page 14 data, that only is housing of CDA provided shallow subsidy housing for seniors, right? So just want to make that clear because some people watch this or learn that that's maybe why Prior Lake's not on there, or Belle Plaine's not on there, is because it's not all units for residents age 55 plus. It's just that particular kind. Really important, I think, to point out because, again, we're not trying to mislead anybody. It's just this is a part of the information. We know there are units for people 55 and over in Prior Lake because you stopped shipping them out, right? You keep them now. Good.
Importing.
Good. On the e-readers, and I really support that effort. And Commissioner Wolf, you're right. You know, we spend this much on pupils. Really, we're talking about those kids before they get to the school district and how we can be involved in helping touch those and support this. I think Jake and others have heard from this board, you know, we all would love some kind of accountability, data gathering, information, but then he has to remind us that we're the people who are usually like pro-freedom rights. Let's not chip anybody. So we'll keep asking those questions and probably being moved back. But I'm really excited about that. I think what's hard is the impact of COVID. If we look at screening and you see the lowest number there is Shakopee. Well, I think Shakopee until very recently hasn't been doing screening. I think they're just starting to do it with the kindergartners just because of COVID. So I think we got to double down this year and work hard because we had that gap of 9 months of not much screening going on at all. And we want to keep up these gains. So on that particular topic, I think we really, we, including me, but others who are interested, need to get to work on that and figure out how we can help the school districts get the word out as soon as they're open for business. I did a quick little search and it looks like many of our districts are taking appointments now. Some are booked until 2021, but we need to get that out and get that opportunity going. those are just a few of my comments, but most of all, thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, if I could make a couple comments here. I see that, obviously we have objectives and we have strategies, and I would like to see a process where yearly we identify specific initiatives that are really sharp, measurable. They don't have to be one-year initiatives, but initiatives that each pillar would identify and say, in this next year, we're going to work on this initiative, or this next 2 or 3 years, we're going to work on this initiative, so that, and then we present them to each other. We did some of that in the past, where our pillars identified specific things and did report back to each other pillar group. But I think for the vibrancy of this effort, to have a yearly process where we refocus and say we're going to work on these initiatives, I think would be really healthy and helpful.
Thank you. And I would just say, thanks for being here, of course. It was very good to hear. We did have a pastor on, so it was a good day for a confessional maybe, but it was good to hear that from the presenters that this is not a program. It is not a, agency. It is not it's more of a way of life. Because I think there is a healthy balance of skepticism here and maybe out there, but like we don't want this thing to be some program and some other thing that needs to be fed, but a way of doing things. And the mayor, I like this point of we start out, human nature is we start out with, hey, we want to go there, but it takes that time, that continuity, that passion and to continue the journey even when you're not necessarily seeing the results. And, we live in America. We like results. I mean, one of my favorite buttons in my home is the add 30 seconds on the microwave. I can just hit one button. I got add 30 seconds. If I need a minute, I'm hitting it twice. So to jump to the next new thing, I mean, there's times to do that. We want to be flexible to be able to address things as they arise. Anyone know anything that's come up lately? But anyway. So to have that continuity and to buckle up and be in for the long haul and to try these e-readers and they're not chipped, there's no leash to them, but to try to drive those data points that we are all in this together. We do want to drive this collaboration and collective impact and try to make a difference. So those are good things that stirred my heart and that we're marching down the right path. Even when it doesn't always seem like it. And we're all in the same boat where we know that we need to ebb and flow from time to time, and some things need to be discarded and some things need to be doubled down on. So can't wait to see these trends change and go in the right direction. So thank you everyone for your hard work and you're willing to put in that work. So anything else up here or online? Anyone? Otherwise, we are going to move along.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming on in.